Research Insights with Elite Mind Academy. So, those are our weekly live conversations where we are discussing a variety of topics from organizational well-being industry that often stay behind the closed doors. And today I would like to talk about the links between inclusion and mental health. To be more exact, exclusion and mental health. Where why is this important? Well, first of all, as you will already know, that over the last 6 months, we have been conducting human-centric research to uncover some unmet employee needs in the workplaces that are related to well-being and mental health. Now, we know that very often well-being, organizational mental health programs, they do not deliver ROI on your investment. It's very difficult to measure any impact of those, and there is a lot of those superficial initiatives. And we have made that argument that this is because the solutions and interventions that are being put out there, they're not really meeting people's needs. So we went on to that mission to discover what are those real needs and what people are really expecting out of their employers, out of their colleagues, and out of their well-being and mental health support initiatives, so that it really makes a difference and so it really translates into those results. Now, some of the things that we are discovering throughout are quite concerning, to be honest, because when we are seeing that there are these huge exclusion of individuals who are disclosing some sort of personal concerns and issues around their personal life, and not always mental health, it can be physical health, could be some other chronic conditions, that the moment they disclose that, there is a lot of discrimination, there is a lot of exclusion from opportunities, and sometimes there is even a loss of jobs because of that. Now, of course, this is, in a broad, under the broad umbrella, this is nothing new, right? We know the level of stigma associated with mental health. We know that people are being discriminated and treated differently if they have any mental health conditions. However, what we are seeing is actually then the severity of this is much worse than we think it is. And also that reasons for that are not what we think it is. So really, there is a lot of unintentional exclusion of those individuals because it's very rare. Of course, there are subconscious biases. Yes, we are sometimes intentionally exclude individuals because we don't accept, we don't understand, because of the fear and stigma attached to it. However, most of the time that exclusion is not intentional. It's actually more out of fear of not knowing what to do and how to support people in the right way. And there's a fear of all of the risks attached to not knowing how to best support that person, and therefore there is this kind of fear of unintentional harm either to the individual or just kind of in a wider ecosystem of for having that person. And it really, some of those insights that we were really surprised at, of course, a lot of people were sharing how they feel and how they don't feel maybe included, and cases of discrimination and lost opportunities when they have shared some of their struggles. But what was very interesting to actually hear the other side of the employer side, why that happens. And there's a lot of surprising insights there, specifically related to the fact that, everyone talks about mental health, everyone talks about well-being, everyone now talks about the importance of supporting employee mental health. But actually, when it comes to severe mental illness, there is no support there. There is no guidance. There is no governance, legal policies and procedures that would really protect the business as well as the individual. And some of those situations where we had to support some of our clients are actually really terrifying, right? Because yes, you might have mental health first aiders on board. Yes, you might have, some mental health ambassadors, and your line managers might be trained how to have conversations about depression and anxiety. But now suddenly someone is having, let's say, a psychotic episode, manic episode at work. How do you deal with that, right? Now, this is a very, very different scenario, and that's where a lot of issues arise, because now suddenly this person becomes risk to the business simply because employers and colleagues are not equipped to deal with it in any way. And therefore, if it is a risk to the business, very often organization chooses to manage the risk out of the business. And what this means that the person who is now at their most vulnerable state in their life potentially are losing the jobs because of lack of that support and lack of understanding how to really support them. So I think really there is this huge unmet opportunity there, where, on one hand we talk about, yeah, let's support mental health, let's talk about mental health, but actually what are we really doing it to tackle this? And when we look at those the most extreme scenarios, we can really see the gaps. And therefore we have chosen to look at, creating some of our solutions and some of our consulting processes in a way that they are by design, they are built to be inclusive, and they are built for the most extreme scenarios. Because if we prepare workplaces for those, then of course we know that we will be able to deal with some less severe cases and scenarios. Now, having said that, this doesn't mean that every workplace now supposed to be a healing place, and that every line manager is supposed to become a therapist. And now it is also responsibility of employers to then, treat and support those extreme cases. Absolutely, that is not the case. However, we still need to know what is it that we need to do, and what are the legal minimal boundaries and responsibilities and duty of care from us as employers towards that individual, so that they can remain in employment and they can continue doing their jobs. Because the moment we exclude that person out of workplace, it becomes incredibly difficult for them to get back into employment. And again, the level of productivity that we lose because of letting those people go, very often costs of training new person and recruitment and development actually are much higher than the support that we could have provided to that person in a form of accommodation and flexible kind of accommodating the ways of working and the support needed to get them back on track and to get them to that full level of productivity. So in summary, some of the statistics say that over 300,000 people lose their jobs because of their mental health. Now, based on some of our research and statistics, we estimate that actually this figure is probably closer to 500,000. Why? Because you cannot legally fire someone because they have mental health issue, which means that the reasons for why people lose their jobs are usually wrapped up in all of this kind of performance management and kind of underperformance processes, which means that this person is no longer to perform their duties. And because of those grounds, now we can manage them out of the company. And when we look at those statistics, that does not link directly to mental health, right? Because if we do, that would be a discrimination, direct discrimination because of mental health. So we choosing to kind of performance manage and manage out those people out of the business, instead of actually choosing to address some of the support needs that this individual requires in order to perform well in their workplace. So there is those very, very gray boundaries between the support that is needed and the performance that then results as a result of that support that we are providing. So yeah, it's been very, very interesting to see that also. Of course, there's huge numbers of statistics showing that there's huge absences that are related to sickness and abscess. And again, depending on statistics where you look at it, it's between 12-15% of all absences are related to mental health. But again, how many of those are actually not reported? How many of those are actually reported under different reasons? Because when we look at asking people whether they would share their mental health concerns, whether they would share their chronic conditions with employers, between 78 to 75% actually say no, we are worried of telling our employers, and if we have those issues we would never tell them because of the fear of exclusion, discrimination, and so on. And from those people who actually have those conditions, nearly 80% of them say that they have experienced some sort of disadvantage because of this, because of sharing their condition with their employers. And nearly a quarter of them say that they have experienced direct discrimination, exclusion, or even loss of employment because they have disclosed their conditions to their employers. So I think those are really concerning statistics. And I think when we look at those statistics, for us, what is really interesting is what is between those lines and what is it exactly that we are not seeing, what information is being missed and what is not being captured by some of that data. And that's where we try to uncover some of those stories and some of those limitations and to see like, why is this happening and how can we overcome this? So our research project is now completed. We're still continuing building on the same data and insights, but for the second stage, we're actually going to be partnering up with the Center for Inclusive Leadership, led by the amazing Paul Anderson Walsh, that I'm sure many of you already know. And our goal is to create some unique solutions at this intersection between mental health, organizational well-being, and inclusion and diversity. Because really, we see that those links go both ways, that people with mental health conditions are being excluded and discriminated, but also people who are being excluded and discriminated for any other reasons, that also affects their mental health and well-being. And at the moment, there are really no effective solutions that would address that gap. And a lot of this is just kind of being washed away as always just stigma associated to mental health. But that is not acceptable, right? We cannot use stigma as an excuse for not providing support and for not looking at what are these unmet needs of our employees and how can we really treat everyone equally, regardless of what conditions and illnesses they have. But again, like we said, there's other side of the story, employer side of the story, where some of that exclusion is not intentional. It's more out of fear of not knowing what to do. It's a lack of policies, standards, guidelines in terms of what are the legal requirements from employers, and lack of links of those connections with experts to then know where exactly we need to pass this on, where the support goes beyond our levels of expertise. So yes, stay tuned. We will be sharing some of our continuous research and we'll be sharing those next exciting steps about solutions between well-being and mental health and inclusion in the workplace. And I really can't wait to share with you some of our next steps and research. And please do let us know if you would like to take part in that, if you would like to participate in our research, either as an individual, sharing some of your personal experiences and stories, or maybe as an organization, and to see if we can test some of our approaches and pilot our solutions to your organization at your organization for research purposes. We would love to hear from you. So yeah, thank you to those of you who are listening, and enjoy the rest of the day, and we'll speak soon. Bye then.